We can begin. I guess looks like we have everyone except Allison. Should I read
whenever
the
you
preamble,
want,
Bob?
Yeah. I guess you just say you're calling the meeting to order and you read that little preamble and then you're good to go.
Okay. All right, I'll call the meeting to order. Good evening. As Vice Chair of the Conservation Commission, I am declaring that an emergency exists, and I am invoking the provisions of RSA 91-A23B. Federal, state, and local officials have determined that gatherings of 10 or more people pose a substantial risk to our community and its continuing efforts to combat the spread of COVID-19. In concurring with their determination, I also find that this meeting is imperative to the continued operation of town government and services, which are vital to public safety and confidence during this emergency. As such, this meeting will be conducted without a quorum of this body physically present in the same location. At this time, I also welcome members of the public accessing this meeting remotely. Even though this meeting is being conducted in a unique manner under unusual circumstances, the usual rules of conduct and decorum apply. Thank you for your patience. Let's start the meeting by taking a roll call attendance. When each member states their name, please also state whether there is anyone in the room with you during this meeting. So I guess we'll just go around.
Hi, Don Clement, alternate member. Presently, there's no one in the room, but there might be somebody floating in and out at times.
Why don't we go down, Sally?
Sally Ward, no one's currently in the room with me.
Okay, Andrew Koff, I'm the vice chair. Dave?
Jenny Robb, and nobody's in the room.
Okay, how about Dave? Dave's muted. He's Dave Short, the treasurer, is muted. Bill?
I'm here. Nobody's in the room with them.
Allison?
Allison Eberhardt, currently no one in the room with me, but my kids will probably wander through.
Trevor?
Trevor Matera, currently no one in the room with me, but same, kid might wander through.
Lindsay?
Hi, this is for me. Deb Humiston, and currently no one is in the room with me. I kicked him out.
Thank you. How about Lindsay?
Lindsay White, no one is currently in the room with me.
And last but not least, I'd like to welcome Nick Campion to the Conservation Commission. This is his first meeting as an official member. So welcome, Nick.
Good evening.
I don't think we got Carlos. Carlos, are you with us? Did we get you?
Oh, I skipped Carlos. Sorry.
I am here by myself in the room.
Okay, that's everyone. So we've done the roll call.
Did we get Julie?
Yeah, Julie too.
Oh, thank you.
Julie Gilman, Select Board Rep. I am alone, although my husband may wander through.
And Kristen?
I am here and I am alone.
Okay, now we have everyone. Sorry about that. Thank you. Do we have any public comment?
I'll just jump in. If it looks like there's a member of the public who wants to speak. So Dan, if you can go ahead and check that out on the dashboard. And, they should be allowed to speak, so they should be able to unmute themselves.
Hi, my name is Dawn Jelly, and I'd like to make a public comment.
Thank you for coming, Dawn. Yes, go ahead.
Okay. So thank you very much for this opportunity. I wanted to read to you a letter that I sent to the Conservation Committee today regarding a building application on the lot next door to me. prior to the required town wetland conditional use permit application that I believe will be filled shortly. So this is the letter. It's regarding lot 8356 on Nelson Drive, where I live, and the proposed building and the wetland application. So thank you very much for your consideration. Our understanding of the concern over lot 8356 on Nelson Drive is twofold. We understand the need of the town for more taxable buildable land, and we understand the preservation of prime wetlands and the concern of the town to prepare for a future impacted by global warming. The wetlands of Nelson Drive were happily undisturbed since time began, and the watershed to Little River kindly providing the water in your glasses until lot 8356 was deemed a lot of record by the town attorney. Whilst a lot of record would make sense for a pre-existing structure, to apply these rules to land that has never been built on is a decision of dollars, not of cents. In addition, this decision appears to have been made without input by the people that could speak up for these lands, the Conservation Commission, and the written guidance of Ordinance Number 9, Natural Resource Protection. In fact, 9.1.1a states to protect the public health, safety, and general welfare of the community by promoting the most appropriate use of land and the protection of wetland ecosystems and water quality in accordance with goals and objectives of the most recent Exeter Master Plan. Therefore, today, while we look at a lot that already has been stripped bare of vegetation in preparation for building, there is backpedaling to correct overlooked permitting, and therefore my letter for consideration today. As abutters, our concerns are 3. Number 1, it's Article 9.1.1, G and B. G is to prevent damage to structures and properties caused by inappropriate development in wetlands, and B, prevent the destruction of or significant changes to those wetland areas related to water bodies and adjoining land which provide flood protection. Simply visit Nelson Drive to understand the whole street is wet, with consistent slow drainage and standing water for days after rainfall. Despite the buyer providing evidence of environmental assessments that mitigate impact, how could over 1,400 square feet, 4,100 square feet, which is the house and the barn, not change the flow of water, and in particular into our home? All basements on Nelson Drive have historically been wet. And number 4, we've put significant money and effort to mitigate black mold so we can live in a healthy house above a drive basement. But by the time the diverted water from lot 8356 fills our basement, it will be too late for the right decision. Number 2, in regards to Article 9.1.1, C, D, and E, to protect wetland systems that provide filtration of water flowing into ponds and streams, augment stream flow during dry periods, which connect to the ground or surface water supply. D, to protect wildlife habitats, maintain ecology function, and support other public purposes, such as those cited in HRSA 4821A1, and is amended from time to time. And then E, to protect potential water supplies and existing aquifers, water-bearing stratum, and aquifer recharge areas. But currently, the proposed plan of the house and accessory structure do impinge on the edge of the town wetland 100-foot buffer. The initial response may be simply to move the proposed property to the west and out of the buffer. However, this is in contradiction to G, prevent damage to structures and properties caused by inappropriate development in wetlands. In support of the wetlands, we suggest moving the location further towards the street and not towards the west and number 4 Nelson Drive. And then number 3, which is Article 9.3.2 definitions. For G, the residential accessory structure, a subordinate structure located on the same lot as the principal building. the use of which is incidental to a principal building and discharges no sewage or other wastes. 9.3.4i.3, residential accessory structures of less than 400 square feet on the first floor area within 150 feet of the Exeter River, Squamsquat River, or their major tributaries, or within 100 feet of perennial brooks, streams, and creeks located within the Exeter Shoreland Protection District. According to the maps provided in the packet to the Conservation Committee for the meeting on April 14th, 2020, sheet C1, the proposed accessory structure is 38 foot by 38 foot, which is 1,444 square feet, which is over 3 times these size regulations. It contains a sewer grinder pump with individual sewer line proposed down Nelson Drive, which is in clearly violation of waste discharges. And then 3, it contains a separate secondary driveway from the structure to the barn. With these violating features, we would contend that the proposed accessory structure is more of an accessory dwelling than a place to keep garden equipment. Therefore, in summary, to support the ordinance of the town of Exeter, the lot of exemption should be overturned, but at the very minimum, the proposed house should be located out of the buffer towards the street and not nearer to lot line with number 4. And the barn should not be allowed because of its size and its discharging sewage. We thank you both from myself, Dawn Jelly, and my husband, Eric Downer, number 4, Nelson Drive, Exeter. And I appreciate you listening because I realize it was a long letter. And so thank you.
Thank you, Dawn, for reading that and providing it to us in writing before the meeting. It's a well thought out letter, and I'm sympathetic to the issue, although I don't know what we have as a commission to decide related to this project at the moment, if any. Kristen, we talked about it and we commented on the shoreland permit and the wetland permit.
So I can give a quick update, Drew. The applicant will be required to get a wetland conditional use permit. They have applied for a state shoreland permit and it has been issued. And I do have a meeting with him later this week to go over the application process. The only portion that the existing lot of record exempt the applicant from was our local shoreline conditional use permit process. So this project will be before you, just not tonight.
Through the wetland. Okay. In regards to the wetland buffer impacts.
Correct. Yeah. So I would encourage you not to discuss it tonight. The applicant is not here to represent themselves. So in all fairness, I would just accept that as public comment and carry on.
Thank you. And thank you, Don, for the comment. I think we will continue to move on. We have a fair amount to cover tonight, and we're not in a place, but we will discuss this project at a future date. It sounds like.
Andrew, I would just urge us to keep that in our files for whenever, if we do get a chance to comment on a CUP. Just
to retain this letter in our files. It's a good point.
Exactly.
I can do that for you.
Okay, and we'll be able to notify Don too when that happens.
The application process includes a butter notification.
Exactly, right. Okay, all right, let's move on to our action items. Before we get to any other meeting points, we need to redo our election of officers. So if people can hold their horses for a minute, we'll do the election. We will start with the chair position. Does anyone have any nominations for the chair?
Andrew? Am I unmuted?
Dave?
Yes. I would like to make a motion to appoint you as chair of the Conservation Commission.
Second.
Thank you, Dave. Okay.
And that was a second from Sally?
Second.
Does anyone want to discuss this? I'm open to this idea, I guess.
I would just say, in appreciation for your work as vice chair, I think it's a good selection for us going forward.
Okay. Any other comments before we have to take I think we have to do a roll call vote now because of it. It's online.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to remind you of.
So I should do that as clerk, correct?
That's right.
Okay. So are we ready for a vote?
Okay. Chair, Mr. Chair, point of clarification. Who is eligible to vote this evening?
That's a good.
Because we have more than the required number of members, I think. So
we have six members.
We have 7 members.
We have 6. So we have 6 members, full members, regular members tonight, and then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 alternates. I'm not sure which alternate would vote.
Well, the chair can make that determination, I think. The chair can designate.
We had a suggested motion. We had a suggested motion because Todd's no longer on the commission. We do need to appoint one of our alternate positions to a full position, and Trevor was identified as that voting member in Kristen's memo, and I support that.
So should we do that first before the vote?
So that would be a recommendation. So the official appointment to a voting member position would be done by the select board. I would, in this case, I would find alternates to replace, and we typically go in order of when they became a Conservation Commission member. So that would be Ginny, then it would be Lindsay and Trevor, and then Nick. Oh, and sorry, Dawn, and then Nick.
So to be the 7 voting members, we would include Ginny as the alternate, correct? Is that what you're saying?
Ginny.
Correct.
Okay. So shall we proceed with the roll call vote? So I'm just going to go down the list of the names as they appear on my document. So I'm first, and I say yay for Drew. Drew?
Yay.
Drew, your vote for yourself? Dave?
Yes, yay.
Dave Short? Carlos?
I agree, yes.
Yay.
Bill Campbell?
Yes, yay.
Did you vote, Bill? Allison?
Yes.
Allison? Yes. And Ginny? Ginny, you want to unmute yourself and vote?
That work? Did I unmute myself?
Good.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, good. Done. Congratulations, Drew.
Thank you. Sorry, my internet's acting a little funny, I think. Okay, so next we're going to go to vice chair. Would anyone like to be nominated? Who would anyone like to nominate somebody for vice chair? Don't everyone speak at once.
I would,
Check your list, Sandra. There's hands up. I would second that if Kristen is a alternate can serve as an officer.
No, typically alternates do not serve as officers.
Not recommended.
I miss
Can I
what
make a
the
motion?
what the
Hand up. I did too.
Okay, just click down here.
And
Yeah.
could we nominate Trevor because he probably will be appointed at the next meeting? There was sort of a follow-up. That should have been done at the last select board meeting.
Close that.
But
Oh,
it
there
wasn't.
now. So you don't want to leave the meeting, close. There you go.
Kristen, do you have any comment on that?
Ooh, I don't know. Do you want to hold off on the vice chair position until he's officially appointed? The vice chair wouldn't be performing a task at this point.
All right, let's do that. Let's table
that would be
vice
good.
chair. Okay, treasurer.
But Mr. Chair, excuse me, Mr.
Do
Chair,
you-
at the select board's meeting when we were approving appointments, we were waiting for this meeting to see what you folks wanted to do to fill that empty full member position, which you've just done.
Okay, excellent. So we,
that means,
right,
yeah.
we're playing leapfrog here.
A little bit, but
So we
go ahead and find yourself a vice
should we
chair.
make an official motion to request that Trevor be nominated at the next select board meeting? Do we need that, Julie, or can you just take a verbal?
No, the select board does really have to vote on it, so I'm going to bring back the suggestion. You have so many alternates that we wanted to be sure that whoever we named really wanted to do it. So we'll bring Trevor's name to the next meeting. But you've appointed Ginny, I
Okay,
think,
but you don't need an official
alternate to fill
motion.
the voting for this team.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a question? 2 questions. If we're going to
Yes.
recommend to the select board, Trevor be, if we're planning on recommending to the select board that Trevor be a full member, is Trevor okay with that? Number 1. 2, if we're going to hold off nominating Trevor to be vice chair, will he accept that nomination? And Trevor's here tonight, isn't he, on the meeting?
Mm-hmm.
Yep, I am.
Unmute yourself, Trevor. I can't answer these questions for you.
Yep. I would accept the nomination to be a full voting member. What comes with the The position of vice chair. A pay raise, I'm sure.
Yeah, that's mostly it. There's actually not a lot of actual requirements. Mostly if I am not able to make a meeting, you would be in charge as the chair to fill in when the chair is not there.
That sounds good. Yeah, I would accept that.
Okay. Should we move on to treasurer?
I would nominate Dave Short as treasurer.
Second.
So it was seconded by Sally. Do we have any comments, Dave, or otherwise?
Are you willing?
Oh, yes. Thank you.
Good. And Drew, do we need a roll call vote on this? Roll call?
Yeah.
Okay, I vote yay. Drew? Drew, your vote?
Yay. Yay.
Dave? Your vote? Carlos?
If I can vote, yeah.
Bill?
Yay.
And Allison?
Yay.
And Ginny? Did you vote, Ginny?
Lindsay or me?
Ginny.
If it's yes, yeah, yes.
Okay, done.
Do we need to do clerk as well, Sally? I motion to re-elect Sally as clerk.
Second.
I would be honored to continue to serve.
Okay.
So shall we do a roll call vote again? Or can we do this by
Yes.
acclamation? Okay. Dave? Dave, your
Yes.
vote? Carlos?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Allison?
Yes.
And Ginny?
Yeah.
Okay, done.
Done. Excellent. Thank you. We made it through that. We will move on to our second item. Unless anyone else has any comments on that. Is Deb still with us? Can you please talk to us about your proposal here?
Sure. Yes, sure. So every June, I put on an event, a public event, and with the orienteering in the forest. And this year, I would like to be able to do it virtually. So the way that our club is doing it in different parts of the state is to have orienteering, the maps and the courses, downloadable, printable. They can go on our website or on this conservation community website if you want, and print the maps that they want to go out into the forest and find the controls. Typically, the controls are flags, and they mark that they've been there with an automated punch system. And since we're not doing any gathering, people do it as they want to. What some of the club members are doing and what I propose to do is use these plastic markers that I make. It looks like an orienteering control. I teach in the schools, and this is a school one that's 5 inches square, and I would make a 6-inch one and attach it to the trees in the specific locations. Usually a very simple course would have it at a junction of a trail, but just with a little punch and a wire that goes around a tree. No nail, no staple or anything. It's just wired on about 6 feet high. And since orienteering is commonly done under a timing, there is a free app called iOrienteering that there will be information about that somebody could download to their phone, and it's an automatic timer. And on each of these would be a little square that shows a QR code, and they just take a picture of that and they get the timing for that particular location, and then so they have a whole timing system if they would like. They don't have to do it that way. If they're not using the app, then I just put a letter or something on the laminated plastic piece, and they just write that down, and that shows that they got that particular one. Sorry, I'm just zooming through this. You probably have questions, but basically it's, if you haven't done orienteering before, it's just using a map and figuring out where you are on the map and how to get to circles that are on the map, and what you find in the circle will be this instead of a typical fabric hanging flag. And that's it. We have them over at the Harris Center right now. We have one set up in, Hollis has one. We probably have 5 around the state. There's one going up in Bear Brook, but it's so families can still go out and go orienteering, but not at a particular, I'll leave them up. Typically, I think my club members were putting them up for about a month. So you announce it, they can go to the website, download a map, go whenever they want. It's not a crowded thing. It doesn't cost anything. Any comments? Questions?
Thank you. Any comments or questions for Deb?
Usually I put my event on around Father's Day, so I expect this to be ready about the same time, maybe a little before. And I can send the maps to whoever needs to say yay or nay to the courses. I'm happy to do that.
Well, and I know we've been supportive of this in the past, and I don't see why we wouldn't be continuing to be supportive of this use. I like the concept of it just being out there and people could do it at their own pace. So I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, the only thing I would want feedback on is how I'm using the controls. We do have permanent markers that we put up in places, but they cost a lot and sometimes disappear. And being laminated plastic, if somebody makes it disappear, I can check it once a week or something and replace it. It's just what people do.
Deb, I think you answered this, but I missed it. How long would you expect to leave the controls up?
3 weeks to a month. I'm happy to make it shorter or longer. We typically, people, when they go out and do the course, they will send an email to the club just saying that they participated and they did it, or they'll get all of these right, and we'll be able to see that they got them. And then if it slows down, then I take them down. Or if a lot of them are disappearing, I would say that's enough. But a month, 3 weeks to a month.
Bill has his hand raised.
See, Deb, this is not weather dependent then, as it would be if it was all at one time. Is that right?
It's never really weather dependent. We do it in rain, snow, whatever. But you're right. Sure. This one, people go out when they want. Yeah.
And Don also has his hand raised.
I was ready to make a motion, and the motion would be for the commission to approve the orientation program orientation event as described by Deb this evening.
Second.
Great.
Did Allison, did you have another comment before?
Yeah, I'm having some internet connectivity issues, so it may be delayed. I was just curious if you are getting indicators from people, how many you typically hear from that use the course, and that has no bearing for me on approval. I was just curious.
I haven't heard from my club mates what they've gotten. The Harris Center is a very popular area over there in Western Hampshire, and I would guess that one gets a lot of visitors. Not sure about the other places. I'm happy to send anyone an email or I can ask around. We've all been so far apart from each other. This is our busy season when we meet every weekend, and I haven't seen anybody since March. I haven't seen anybody, so I don't know how everyone's doing with there's another one up in Laconia that's being put on. There's one in Wolfboro. So they're around, and I'm happy to ask and see how many are participating. Mostly it has to do, I think, with getting the word out. We use our Facebook page and also meetup groups. There's different ways to get the word out. The Urban Forestry Center, they're usually great about putting the word out when I have an orienteering event on. I think it really depends on how good I am at getting the word out, how many people participate. It's a really fun family activity, just going for a walk with a reason. It's a good thing.
Excellent. All right, I second Don's motion to approve this use. Any further comments before we vote? You can raise your hand. If not, we will go to Sally, our roll call vote master.
So do we want to do a roll call or can we do a show of hands?
I think for all motions, we have to do a roll call vote, is what I'm told, okay. If Kristen can second that.
That's correct.
Okay, so we'll proceed with the roll call. I vote yes. Drew?
Yes.
Dave? Is Dave still with us? Carlos?
He is.
Yeah. Carlos?
Yay.
Bill?
Yay. Yes.
Allison?
Yay.
And Ginny?
Yes.
Do we have your vote, Dave? Well, it passes.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So I will, when it's all ready, I'll send something to Kristen, if that's right, to just let her know if anyone wants to see the maps before they go up or anything. I'm happy to do that.
That sounds perfect. Please do that.
Okay, I'll do that. Alrighty.
All right. Thanks, Deb. Have a good night.
Thank you, everybody. See you next year, probably. Andrew?
Yes.
I believe in the past we've had somebody from the commission be a contact, and I believe Dave has done that in the past.
Carlos.
I'm willing to do it again.
Carlos is the one who did it in the past.
Okay. Whether somebody would be willing to do that, I think would be good.
I could be that person again.
Okay.
Good.
Be fine. Yep.
Okay, great. Thank you.
There won't be the numbers issue in terms of people, but I can be a contact.
Okay. That'll be great. Thank you very much.
Okay. Moving along to item 3 on our agenda, we have a discussion of active, passive recreation allowances on the proposed conservation land in association with the Gateway at Exeter LLC mixed-use development on Epping Road. That's map 47, lot 6 and 7. And this includes a draft deed and stewardship plans. I know we have Brendan Quigley from Gove Environmental on the line. But I think I would pass this to Kristen. If you can provide us a little summary of what we need to discuss tonight and what we've reviewed on this project in the past.
Okay, I'd be happy to. So Tom Monahan is also on here, at least I think he's on here as well. So if you have questions, the property owner is here too. So this project was before you November 12th, and you have already sent a memo to the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services, and you also prepared a memo and submitted that for the planning board. Those were included in your packet. So there are a few things, because this property was offered up as wetland mitigation, there's a few additional steps that need to happen. And if you, in the meeting memo that I sent out, I kind of broke it up into a couple different steps. So those steps are talking about whether or not you're supportive of passive recreation on the property. At the last meeting, there was some discussion whether, and it sounded like some members may have had concerns that passive recreation could have impact to some of the resources you're trying to protect. So, but there was no official motion or decision by the full board. So this is an opportunity for you to have that discussion and have some consensus over what you feel are appropriate uses. So my recommendation is to first address passive recreation, and then we can go from there. I did also include some suggested motions in the packet as well, if you have that in front of you.
Yes, we do. Dave, I saw your hand is up. We can't hear you and your video's off, Dave. Are you still there?
My hand, Drew, my hand is up. Maybe
your hand is up as well, Don, and you're there. Go for it.
So, Kristen, what do we define as passive recreation? Just so we can all be clear to that.
Yeah, so that's a great question, Don. My recommendation is basically have a discussion if you're supportive of passive recreation at all on that property and what that passive recreation would look like. So on other properties, passive recreation on sub-properties, they're limited to non-mechanized passive recreation, basically foot traffic, or other properties like the town forest, we allow mountain bikes and uses like that. The other type of use that I think would be helpful is to know whether you would be supportive or not supportive of hunting on the property.
Okay. This particular piece of property, which is formerly the King property, am I correct?
That's correct.
It connects, there's a connection of that property, and can't remember which direction, the northeast of it, I guess, to the Little River Conservation Area. Yes?
That's correct. It abuts the Little River Conservation Area to the west, and it also abuts the Connor Farm Wildlife Management.
Connor Farm. Okay, so it's got a connectivity to already currently conservation land.
Correct.
Yeah. My opinion would be, number one, is that the passive recreation that's on those properties, maybe it should be consistent with what we're going to do with this particular piece of property. And by that, I mean, I would like to keep wheeled vehicles out of there. I'd like to have a passive for hiking, bird watching. And again, because the Connor Farm and Little River are open to hunting, and historically, that part of that property was always open for hunting, my opinion would be that I would retain hunting under the New Hampshire Fish and Game regulations to that property. But the only thing I would exclude would be campfires, camping, and wheeled vehicles. That would be my opinion on passive recreation guidelines for this property.
Does anyone feel strongly that we should not allow any type of passive recreation? Bill, I saw your hand was up.
To start, I am a little concerned because we haven't walked this, at least I have not walked this property. We walked the part that's going to be developed, but don't understand why we didn't get an invitation to go out and walk this property. There are 10 indicated vernal pools on this property. And I would, is this a property that we should have? And then I can't find it now because I was looking for the document, but the document says one of the things is mountain biking on this property. I believe that's in one of the documents we have before us. I can't find it right now. And I would be concerned about that. I've been concerned about trails, if there are any on there now, but maybe there are sections of this property that should be left natural for wildlife and not have trails on it. I just wish we had had a chance to, I don't understand why we couldn't have had some sort of site walk. Even, I've had a little bit of time in the last 3 months. I've been out in our woods. I don't see why we couldn't have had a map and could individually have gone on this property. So I'm a little concerned about that.
I agree, Bill, that I think before we make any big decisions here, I find it difficult to decide anything before we can do a site walk. And I know we haven't let Brendan Quigley or Tom speak. I see, Brendan, do you want to make a comment?
Let's see if So thank you, Kristen, for the background. It's what we had discussed a few times leading up to the meeting we're finally getting to have. There aren't any trails out there, and I don't recall having mountain biking ever specifically included in any of the documents. Certainly anything that could be described as passive recreation and anything that the Department of Environmental Services is going to accept is not going to include wheeled or any kind of motorized vehicles of any kind. So what we've done, because Kristen did point out early on that there was some concern expressed at the first meeting about recreation in general on the property, is we've altered this deed, which you may have seen an earlier version of, or at least an earlier version was sent to Kristen. It's now written so that this is a something that will be allowed. Trail development for hiking, walking, nature viewing, possibly mountain biking in certain areas, but nothing will set anything on the ground or determine anything at this time. So these will be your plans for developing these trails or these access areas will be handled as a normal course of, the trail management that you do on Little River Conservation Area, for instance.
On the proposed, I just found it, page 44 of the handout we have on page 45 lists the proposed management plan. And in it, it says passive recreation, number 1, and number 2 is mountain biking. So it's in the proposed management plan that you put forth.
Yep. So we can just take that out. So that is something. There's two different things here. The legal document is the conservation deed. The management plan is something that is new. It was a surprise to me to have to prepare it for the federal folks, and they just like to have something of this nature out there, that it's very flexible. That can all be tailored to, exactly what you want or would not want. That's exactly the kind of thing that I was hoping to discuss tonight.
So Brendan, just so we're all clear, you submitted to us this baseline documentation report of proposed preservation land. And in that, part of it is talking about how the land would be managed and land use. And that's why part of the reason why we're having this passive recreation conversation. And you're looking for us to sign off on this document, and it'll go to DES, and they'll also sign off on it.
Well, it is complicated because there's three different things. There is the baseline documentation report, which is as the stewards accepting the property, you will have to sign off on. It just attests to the current condition. In other words, if someone went out there in 10 years and saw some sort of encroachment, they'd have something to refer back to. The baseline documentation report does not speak to management of the property at all. So that I would, of course, want to know if there's any comments or suggestions on what goes in there. But the appropriate sort of information in that would be, I saw an old tire, or, there's an old car out there or something of that nature, which I'm not aware of anything like that, but that's the kind of stuff that goes in there. The other important document is the deed itself, because that's what gets recorded at the registry. And that is what is going to be the legal document that restricts or allows uses on the land. And then there's this third document, which is the stewardship or management plan, which the federal folks have asked for, since this is part of a wetland mitigation plan. And I'm not sure that goes anywhere other than the Army Corps of Engineers file cabinet. That's not to say it shouldn't reflect what the commission would like to see or what your expectations are for managing the property. So to that, to the extent we can get to that, I would like to have that discussion about what would be, what you would like changed in there. But the principal discussion item is the allowance of some form of passive recreation on the property.
Does anyone feel like they are not supportive of passive recreation on the property? Or do we need a site visit before we can determine?
I've had my hand up, but
Drew, I don't have a.
I know the property fairly well. I've walked that boundary, and and I think I'm one of the ones that was concerned about putting much in the way of trail access and use, mainly because of the vernal pools and the wide areas you'd have to work around, and potentially there'd be erosion and around those vernal pools. And vernal pools, of course, are only as good as the upland habitat around them. And there are not a lot of good places because the wet areas tend to be left and the upland areas tend to get developed. There are not a lot of good places where you have both fairly intact. So my feeling on it would be favoring, especially as the Little River has more land already without trails, leaving that as a more conservation oriented without passive even use other than wandering without a trail, being able to just walk across. There's not much space you can in town except for the Little River, sort of go in and walk through the woods without being on a fairly heavily used part of the trail. In terms of hunting, I think I would also not encourage opening it up for hunting, even though I know it has been used for hunting, partly because it's going to be fairly close to the entranceway with more buildings and people. And there is hunting already in the Little River property and the Connor Farm. So that'd be my view on that.
So if I could chime in, I have my hand up. I agree with Carlos I agree with Carlos on the issue of hunting, particularly since this conservation area is contiguous with this piece of property that's going to be developed. And I think I recognize that it's difficult to say at what point is hunting allowed, if we allow it in Little River, but not in this area. But I think it's too close to a development for hunting. And I think I'm in favor of passive recreation that doesn't affect the vernal pools. And I suppose that means without trails. But I would like people to be able to access the property for walking and bird watching and whatnot without a lot of development of trails, without having seen it for that purpose. So I think a site walk would be useful. So we could see what we're talking about. Carlos is very familiar with it. I haven't actually. I've seen the property that's going to be developed, but I haven't walked the conservation part. I also had a question about access, and I'm not sure if this is the point to raise that, but in the original plan, there was a bridge from the development, the part of the property that was going to be developed to this conservation package, and I see that that's been eliminated, and I'm curious about that. Why is that eliminated?
So we eliminated that for two reasons. One is because I personally suspected that if there was a concern about access or overuse or inappropriate uses, that might help get through this issue. And secondly, we weren't quite sure if you guys would approve this at all, and it was looking like they would potentially have to add that as a wetland impact, which we hadn't done in the original plan. And it would just be a trail bridge. It wouldn't be a large extra permitting ask, but between knowing that the commission had reservations about access in the first place and then having the complications of having to do the additional permitting, we thought it would be the best thing to remove that. I kind of had always thought, as Carlos suggested, that the property would essentially be managed the same way as Little River. It would be open, but not necessarily a trail system like you'd see in the town forest, for instance. So I guess that would be my suggestion of a direction that might be satisfactory to everyone.
Don?
Trevor, Ginny's had her hand up visually for a while. So why don't you recognize Ginny before we get to me?
Ginny, you're up.
Thank you. I don't have a hand on my screen. So,
okay.
yeah, a good hand. I don't have a hand on my screen, but so I'll get everything out all at once. I too would be opposed to having hunting on that, only because of the proximity to the development, and also I am. As far as an accent, I was looking at the lower corner down by where the commercial building is to be sited, in that lower corner, and it's right near the property line. I am still very upset over the whole complex. There's very little green space for these 400 people. And I think that we have, in a way, an obligation to provide them. We didn't do it legally, but to have some access to that back land so that they can have an opportunity to get out and not have to walk Epping Road or the parking lots, or, we've seen it with this current lockdown, how people are flocking to open spaces, and I really feel that should be accessible to the 400 plus people that are going to be residing there. That's all.
So anyways, now my hand is up.
Okay, thank you.
I like Carl's and Sally's idea about not doing intense trail development there. I think I agree with Carlos. It's nice to be able to walk through the woods, just the woods, without having to go through a trail network. And so I would be very much in favor of not doing intense trail development. There are trails in there already, and you would see that if you did a site walk, as Brendan has talked about. But those were developed years and years ago. So I think as we manage the property, I think part of our management would be to try to not to do intense trail development. I'm still going to be an advocate for hunting, and let me tell you why. As more and more land gets developed, more and more land gets out of that area where people can do hunting. And it's not just deer hunting, it's upland hunting. This has been a process, this has been something, an activity that's been going on for a long time. Again, hunters are required by very, very specific state laws about how close they can be to any structures or roads. They have to follow those rules and regulations. If we take away hunting there, you have hunting on Little River Conservation Area, and you have it on Connor Farm. When a hunter's going to know is they're tracking through the woods that they've gone from the Connor Farm into this property or from Little River to this property. It makes it too difficult. I don't think there's anything wrong with hunting if it's done legally and that follows the guidelines. And that's whether that's here or any other parts of the town. We allow hunting, and I think to take that away, and what we're doing, we're taking away a section of property that has always been historically hunted, and I think we then create a situation that makes it much more difficult for hunters who are hunting Connor Farm, which is state-owned, state-controlled, and Little River, which is controlled by the town, to determine where they are when they're hunting, when they're tracking game. So I don't think that hunting, and it's only hunting during the season, is a bad thing to have as part of passive recreation. Because one of the missions of the town, of the Conservation Commission, number one, is to protect our resources, our natural resources. But the other is to make sure that the public can enjoy those resources. And that is one of the resources that can be enjoyed on that that piece of property that is surrounded by other large pieces of property. So that's the pitch I'll continue, and that's where I'm at. Thank you.
We'll go over to Bill.
Kristen, am I right that we have to prove something tonight because this is going to the planning board on the 23rd, and this is our one chance to influence that vote, even though we haven't had a site walk?
No, this is not your one
Kristen
chance
there?
to influence your vote. It would be helpful. Can you not hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Hello?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So the planning board will be discussing the recreation opportunities in the development. And so understanding whether the Conservation Commission would support a portion of this conservation land as recreation opportunity could help kind of give some context to that for the planning board. But ultimately, it's up to the Conservation Commission to make a recommendation to the select board over acquiring land. So you would still have an opportunity to refine the deed. This is not one and done. If you cannot come to consensus tonight, we could bring this back for discussion without it affecting the planning board vote.
Okay, because I'm concerned we do need more space for, if you take a look, especially right now, at the use of the town forests and on weekends and even during the week. It's because of the pandemic, they're used quite heavily. We do need more space for that, but I also appreciate the fact that some people have voiced that some of this area maybe should be left alone. But until we get out there to see it, I don't know what to recommend myself.
I agree generally with what Bill's saying there, and I think is it practical to not have any trails on this given the large number of people there? And if we say no trails, does that just mean we're going to get unapproved trails and herd paths spidering throughout the property versus could we have one main trail that's well maintained and properly sited that connects into Little River? I do think it would be cool to be able to make a longer trail to connect sort of West Exeter through the Little River all the way through the town forest. And this is sort of a key piece to connect a lot of our trail networks. That's sort of one big idea I've had. You make a bigger, sort of a longer trail network that links a bunch of our properties through town, and this could be part of it. I know there's been a lot of land use out there. This was logged in Brendan's report, the baseline documentation. There's skidder paths that have been through here, so it's clearly not a pristine property, but it's been a number of years since 4 or 5 years since it was logged, so it's recovered from that. But I agree that I think it sounds like we're in support of limited recreation. We're not sure about the hunting piece. Well, sorry. And we're definitely not in support of wheeled or biked recreation on this lot. Trevor, do you have additional comments? I see your hands up.
Yeah, I just wanted to chime in and say that, yep. I just wanted to chime in and say that I agree with Dawn regarding hunting. I might be having internet issues here, but that I would agree to still allow hunting on this property.
Okay, thank you. How about Carlos?
So one thing I didn't mention before is I'm excited about the property in terms of having a baseline is excellent. We don't have that for some of the other properties. Having a more detailed deed description of use and having a management plan. Those are all things that ideally we would have on all the town conservation properties. And I think it is a neat piece. I've been in it again even before it was logged, not so much after it's logged. It's kind of hard to walk through now. And So I think it's a great addition, to be a great addition to Little River. In terms of trail connection, I've thought about that. I've walked it to connect around to other parts of the Little River. There's a lot of tough, wet areas. It would be pretty complicated. You could do it. But it would take a lot of work. There's a lot of beaver ponds, streams, wet areas. There's some beautiful little knolls in between, but hard to get to those and connect them into trails. So that's why I was kind of thinking, I know the current trails in Little River are getting lots of use right now. They're not connected into that piece currently, and I probably would not recommend doing it, leaving it on the other end for trails, but it certainly can be looked at. But my preference still would be to leave that as the less heavily used part of Little River.
That makes sense. That part is quite wet, Carlos, isn't it? So maybe that's a better idea and practical. It's better just to leave that space for hunting and just open space. So it seems like we are open to limited passive recreation. Hunting, sounds like we're mixed on. Do we want to vote, or is there any more to discuss? Do we want to? Kristen has a suggested motion to the planning board. I don't think we need to decide much right now, given that we haven't seen the property in person on a trail walk. I do feel firmly that I'm not quite ready to approve any of these documents tonight, but maybe we do want to send a memo to the planning board with our thoughts, at least on the recreation piece. Dave, do you have a comment?
Yeah, I think the idea of a site walk is a really good idea. One, just to get an idea of the lay of the land, but then also I agree with Don and Trevor that if possible, hunting should be allowed. But if you also, I like your idea of maybe a main trail to connect other areas, but we'd have to figure out a way to reconcile those two uses also, I believe. So a site walk probably is a very good idea. That's it.
Okay. Brendan, do you have any last comments? Or Kristen?
Only that. Can you hear me?
Are you there, Brendan?
Andrew, can you hear me?
I can.
Yes.
Okay, so my last comment, I guess, would be that I would ask Kristen what her suggestion was moving forward. We had discussed, a appointed group or volunteers from the commission who I could work with more closely, and that could involve a site walk and whoever else would want to go on it to get to the details of what the recreation may or may not be. I'd also point out that you would be able to do that throughout your stewardship of the property. And conditions may change, and those restrictions or allowances may change as well. Importantly, at this time, I think was just to gauge your overall ideas on whether or not there would be any kind of passive recreation allowed. I think what I'm hearing is that the consensus probably is that something should be allowed access-wise, and the details are still up to be decided.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Bill, did you have a comment?
I was just going to say, if we need to make a motion, could we make it very general that way? Almost like what Brendan said, that we're in favor of maybe some sort of passive recreation to be determined later, specifics to be determined later. Does that help at all?
Yeah, I think that's where I'm going to, that we're supportive of allowing a limited passive recreation within the proposed conservation area.
I'll make that motion. If we have to make a motion to recommend to the planning board, I guess, that we're supportive of some sort of passive recreation.
Second.
Any other comments? You can raise your hand. Do we want to add anything about hunting? Or maybe we need to just view the property first and we'll table the hunting piece. I don't think we need to decide that right now. So let's stick with the motion as stated, unless anyone feels strongly. Sally?
I just would add, if we could amend it to say that the details of that would be determined after a site walk.
Yep.
I'm okay with that. It's just like
great.
Okay, so Sally, do you want to call a vote?
Sure. So we ready for a vote? I vote yes. Drew?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Carlos?
Yay.
Bill?
Yes.
Allison?
Yes.
And Ginny?
Yes.
Okay, passes unanimously.
Excellent. The other items on the agenda related to this, the baseline documentation report, stewardship fee, and the deed. I don't feel like I feel like we need to have additional time after we've seen the site. We've done the site walk to reassess these documents before we can sign off on any of them. I don't know that it makes sense to review them at this time due to that. Does anyone have any comments on that?
I'd like to hear what Kristen has to say. Do we need to do that tonight?
I think it would be fine as long as you appoint us. I think it would move more efficiently if there were one or two people from the commission that I could work with making edits to these documents. So my suggestion is schedule a site walk or a dispersed site walk. I'm not quite sure how that will work. Or request a site walk from the property owner. then appoint 1 or 2 people to work with me to review those documents and do some wordsmithing, and then bring it back to the next Conservation Commission meeting. And then we can, for those things that we're unclear about, we could keep language in there and make the decision by vote at the next meeting. Were you guys able to hear that?
Like an excellent path forward. Let's discuss the site visit. How should we propose to do that? Do we want to do it individually? Brendan, I'll let you speak to how you feel best to view this property.
Well, I think we'd get more. I think it would be better to visit as a group, maybe not such a large group, and walk the route that, if you look at the baseline documentation report, there's a series of photographs. Basically walk the perimeter of this thing. Maybe not starting on Epping Road, but starting from, the back of Continental Drive. And that way, I can have my GPS screen so everyone knows where we are. Scheduling, I know my schedule is more complicated now, so I'm not in Exeter every day available for a site walk, but it is light out pretty late at night now, so something in the evening would probably be a good idea.
So I'm a little concerned at convening an in-person site walk as a group. I wonder if Brendan or Tom, if it would be permissible for the Conservation Commission to visit as individuals. A lot of them do have GPS on their phone, and we can get the property boundary shared with them. And from my opinion, as the validity of the baseline document is really just going out there and confirming that it represents what is in fact on the ground. And I don't that's just my 2 cents.
Could we limit the in-person site walk to just a few people? And those people would obviously elect to go with the group if they felt comfortable or willing to do so.
So I've just heard from Tom, and there's no issue with doing it individually, if that's what folks want to do.
I would like. Perhaps I could go out with Carlos at some point. He knows the property too, and I'm free during the day. And I'd be glad to. That would take 2 people away from a group sidewalk. Carlos, I'm volunteering you, but.
Yeah, no, I want to get out there again, even though I've seen it before, but I would gladly go with you.
I'm happy to go by myself too. Maybe we just plan to individually go in the next 2 weeks. That it makes it one less thing to schedule and send 100 emails about. Unless anyone feels strongly they would like a guided, does anyone feel like they want a guided tour of the property? Don does.
No, I want to raise it. I want to make a point.
Okay.
I think that's fine to go out individually, Bill and Carlos. But remember, as Kristen said, one of the main objectives is to go out there with the baseline document to actually affirm that the baseline document is properly put together. So when you're out there on the hike or site visit, you want to have the baseline document with you because you want to verify that it's accurate. That is one of the things you should be doing. You should look at the property for other aspects of recreation or passive recreation, but you also want to make sure that baseline document is accurate. That's my take on it, because that's what we're going to sign off on. We're signing off on a baseline document that says this is the condition of the property prior to the deed being turned over, and we have to verify that. That's my take. Kristen, is that your take too?
Yeah, that's the purpose of the baseline document. Yep.
Okay, Trevor?
Yeah, and adding to that, I'd recommend that the folks that go out and compare the site to the actual baseline document are part of this small group of commission members that work with Brendan and Kristen on the language of this too. So I don't think it needs to be an entire commission effort here. And I don't think all of us need to go out with a baseline document, but I would suggest that maybe the next step is to actually put forward this kind of smaller task force with just a handful of us that can do this, and then that can be easily scheduled and worked with.
That's a good suggestion. Allison?
So one comment I have that I was going to reserve for later, but might make sense to share now is the baseline document, and I agree, it's really for us to get an understanding of the current conditions of the property. But in my mind, since the baseline document is connected to the easement, and so we really want to understand what the public benefit of the document of the property is, and we also want to understand all the conservation attributes. And so to that end, I thought I wasn't able to attend the November meeting where Brendan described the property in detail and all the wetlands attributes, but I did watch the video and I thought he did a really nice detailed job there. But I don't see that level of detail reflected in the baseline document, so I think I'd like to see more, because I'm scrolling now and not finding it. But the section on natural features is quite short, and so I think would benefit from more detail. Could you hear that okay? I was getting an unstable connection.
Thank you, Allison. That's a good point. Yes. Yep. Nope, you came in loud and clear. Loud and clear. That was a good point, Allison. Maybe we need to figure out who would like to work to review the baseline documentation and do the site walk, as Trevor suggested. I thought that was a good point too. Sounds like Bill and Carlos are interested. I'm also willing to help Kristen review these documents. Is there anyone else?
I watch the CNN about the Supreme Court stuff. Oh.
I'm getting some audio from somebody. Okay, it went away.
I'm still
so we have Bill, Carlos, and myself.
Feedback from somewhere.
Okay, please mute yourself. Can I mute Ginny? Ginny, you're not muted. Okay, I muted you. It's gone, hopefully. Is that better? Okay. Is there anybody else besides Bill, myself, and Carlos who is going to work to review this moving forward? No. Are there any other? So I think moving forward, we'll plan a site walk on our own we could email with Brendan about when we want to go out, if that works, or we can tell him we've gone out. And if we have any follow-up questions, this subcommittee could be able to talk directly with Brendan and Kristen. And we can give, maybe individually, we can mark up these documents as we see fit and submit them to Kristen and go from there. Does that work for everyone? Any other comments? Brendan, does that sound like a plan?
Yes.
Okay.
And I can send Carlos or whomever has the capability, a shape file or a GPX file that shows the western part of the property is easy because you got the stone walls, but the separation from where the development is, in other words, where this begins, is totally unmarked in any way. So I could send that along if that'll be helpful.
That would be helpful. And I know that was one of our original comments, was that this had to be surveyed and marked. So I don't know. We can talk more about how this will be laid out a little clearer in the future. That'll be, I guess, one comment we'll have. But that sounds great. If you can send us that file, or send Kristen the file, and we'll send it out. Okay, awesome. We're getting there, team. Are we ready to move on to the budget? Another fun topic?
That's my exit. Thank you for the discussion.
Thanks, Brendan.
Kristen, why don't you lead us in this budget discussion?
Okay. I will be as brief as possible. Obviously, these are unusual circumstances. Economically, the state and the towns are taking a significant hit, as many of us are individually. And with regard to that, the town manager has asked all departments and boards to propose to find within their budget a 10% reduction in cost savings for fiscal year 2020. And in looking at the Conservation Commission's budget, we do have funds currently proposed to hire interns. And personally, I think logistically that's highly unrealistic. So my recommendation to you is that you propose $2,520, which was allocated to interns. You propose to include that as your reduction. And yes, it's more than 10. So ideally, it would be helpful to know if the commission as a whole is supportive of that.
I'm supportive.
I am as well.
I support that as well.
I'll make that a motion if it's needed. A motion that we cut our budget by $2,520 for this current year.
I'll second.
From the intern portion.
For the intern portion.
Okay, let's do a vote. Sally, take it away.
I vote yes. Drew?
Yes.
Dave? Dave?
Yes.
Carlos?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Allison?
Yes.
And Ginny? Did we lose Ginny? Oh, no, there you are. Did you vote, Ginny?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Passed.
Excellent. The NHACC dues are due, and I make a motion to approve $700 from our Conservation Commission dues line item to pay our annual dues to the New Hampshire ACC.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? I assumed it's a necessary thing we need to do. So, Sally, you want to vote?
I vote yes. Drew?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Carlos?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Allison?
Yes.
Ginny?
Yes.
Done.
Yay. All right, we're moving on to committee reports. Property management. We do have some property management things to discuss. Let's go through those. Kristen, do you want to discuss Morset?
Yeah, I'd love to. So as we talked about in our annual planning, we had originally planned to partner with Seacoast School of Technology, and the students were going to grow out some milkweed for the Morset property. And this project was in coordination with New Hampshire Fish and Game. So Ann DeMarco was the instructor. She actually has continued to grow and care for some milkweed seedlings, but they are quite small still and a little too early to plant. In the meantime, we had the fortuitous opportunity with Fish and Game to have Tom Brightman with us, and he has granted us for no cost at all about $1,000 worth of pollinator plants. It's a combination of milkweed, some black-eyed Susans, and other species for planting out at the Morset property. And though we didn't have an opportunity to discuss it as a committee, we figured it was best to take this opportunity on. It meets the management goals of the Morset property. So on May 4th, a small group of us went out and planted these 700 plants within certain growing plots in the Morset property. And Tom has kind of divided up the Morset, the open part, the former football practice field, so the grassland area, into 3 areas. And these planting areas, each of the 3 planting area, let me back up. Each of the 3 parts of the field contain 2 planting areas. And so his recommendation is for us to mow 1 portion each year. So we'll mow roughly a third of the field each year. So there'll be some cost savings in association with that. And what that will do is help to foster, by giving multiple years worth of growth, help to foster different species. So we were able to do it. It was really exciting. I was super thankful for the help that we had out there. And the next step that I think would be incredible is to do some sort of public outreach in support of this. We've been managing the property for pollinators, and there is an opportunity to register the site as a monarch way station, and then Fish and Game can give us these interpretive signs. And I think I included a link in your board packet so you could see what those signs look like. The registration itself is $16. I had the amount wrong in the memo. And the beauty of that is it gets on a national map. It calls attention to it, and we have signs we can put out there. The criteria used to identify a monarch way station, my read through it, it also sounds like the Perry and White's Meadow properties would qualify. So my recommendation to you is to register 2 sites. And so that would be property and White's Meadow.
I like that idea.
And so the goal is to find out if
That sounds like
it would be,
yeah,
perfect for that.
Yeah, that's excellent.
Yeah, I think
Maybe
we need
could
to
do
authorize some money then.
TV spot on that with Bob. Yeah, we do. I motion to approve $32 from the Conservation Land Administration budget line item for this.
I'll second the motion, then Don.
I had a question. Just came to mind. Kristen, part of the agreement when we took into receivership White's Meadow, was part of it that we had to cut that every year? And if so, how does that impact what we potentially would want to do with the monarch? So, yeah, I mean, would that have impact on what we're trying to do there?
So the mowing recommendations from Tom.
Because I'm just thinking, you mentioned the Morissette property. We're only going to.
I don't think so. The mowing recommendations that we.
Pardon me?
Right. I have an unstable internet connection, so I'm sorry if this is not coming through clear. But the Morissette property is the only property that we have a mowing recommendation from Tom Brightman on. We are obligated from the deed White's Meadow to mow that property annually.
Okay. Okay, I just
so it sounds like that's not a problem for this monarch
I
way
think
station.
Getting the pollinators in the Perry Meadow. Yeah. Okay, cool.
Okay, Sally, shall we vote?
Do we need to vote on the motion, Andrew?
So we're going to, okay.
Yes, Sally.
This is for the $32. We're voting on that? Yes? I vote yes. Drew?
Or do we want to? Yes. Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Carlos? Bill?
Yes.
Yes.
Bill? Looks like my internet connection is unstable. Allison?
Yes.
Allison and Ginny?
Yes.
Okay, pass, done.
Okay. There sounds like there's some bad internet juju out there. Everyone's having internet problems.
Yeah.
I would say we have a number of other monetary approvals that we're going to go through. Do you think we could just make all those and then vote once at the end just for efficiency's sake on that? Is that legit?
Sounds like a good idea to me.
Dawn is making a face.
Also muted.
You're muted.
We're under a different set of rules and guidelines here with the remote meetings. And I think it's always best to follow what the guidelines are, that every vote has to be a recorded voice vote. I don't know, maybe Selectwoman Gilman would like to weigh in on that.
No, you're correct. That's the modus operandi is because we're meeting remotely, we can't do a large sweeping motion to approve lots of things. We need to be specific because everybody's got it's a voice vote, a roll call vote, and we need to record that you are agreeing to every single thing that we are proposing. So yes, each has to be done separately.
I understand what you're saying, but I think in this case, I would say because they're all expenditures that it's not a sweeping motion, but rather an itemized motion. So would that work?
I have to say, no, that would not work. We've done the same thing at the select board meeting. We used to be able to group tax abatements of the same amount together, but now now that we're doing remote meeting, we have to know that everybody's voting on the same thing each time. So I'm sorry that I can't make it a simpler thing, but I think it's in your best interest to vote separately.
All right. Glad I asked. Okay, the weed wrench. Carlos wants a weed wrench. I think that's a great idea. We used one at that invasive day last year, and it was an effective tool.
Yes, I've gotten to a lot of the things that do not require a weed wrench, and ones that are larger, I've just cut back and recorded where they are. But yeah, having access to one. Currently, there's no wrench available through the borrowing option we had before. So I think it would be useful. I did pick up a pick. I've used that a little bit, and it helps for medium. I think the weed wrench will help for some larger ones. And I'm not sure, Kristen, I think it looked maybe on pricing. What I'd found in pricing ran from $192 for a larger one to $159 for a slightly smaller, lighter one.
Should we do a not to exceed amount of $220 to cover shipping?
I'll move that.
Second.
We ready for a vote?
Go.
I vote yay. Drew?
Yay.
Dave?
Yes.
Carlos?
Yay.
Bill?
Yes.
Allison?
Yay.
Ginny?
Yes.
Done.
Excellent.
Did we skip the landowner outreach?
Yes.
Oh, I did. I'm sorry. Thank you, Bill. You're keeping me on my toes here. We did this landowner outreach, which we'll be discussing later on in the closed session. I make a motion to approve $37 from the Conservation Land Administration budget line item to cover the mailing that went out.
Second. Second. And are we ready for a vote? I vote yes. Drew?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Carlos?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Allison?
Yes.
Ginny?
Yes.
Done.
Excellent. We have more signs being built. I've seen some more out there in the wild. They're excellent. And Bill, do we need some more budget approved to keep John Thurberg busy?
I'd like to have about $100 if possible. Motion to approve $100 for signs.
Second.
Are we ready for a vote? I vote yes.
Yes.
And Drew? Dave?
Yes.
Yes.
Carlos?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Allison?
Yes.
Ginny?
Yes.
Done.
We have the kiosk at the Industrial Drive into Henderson Swayze. Did people get a chance to review the map that was provided by Kristen? Kristen, do you want to talk about this at all?
Sure, just briefly, the Industrial Drive lot, you'll remember, was developed in association with the meeting place, the apartment complex there. And they were required to put in a kiosk, but no sign. And so it's a very funky shape. So does look a little different from our typical kiosks, but I did draft up a sign that highlights not only the connection to the Henderson Swayze Trail network, but also identifies the distance between that parking lot and the cul-de-sac, because a lot of people do walk Industrial Drive as part of their, afternoon lunch break or something. A lot of the workers in that area do. So I thought that could be through unique trail marking, we could eventually develop that possibly as like a non-road based hike for them to do. So I did identify the distance on there, but I did not give it a blaze color or anything like that because I wasn't sure. But the simple metal kiosks that we use are fairly reasonably priced. I got an estimate for one for $130. So if you have comments on the design of the kiosk, I'm happy to make those changes. It's a quick fix, and then I would appreciate it if you would support a motion to expend the purchase price for a kiosk.
I think the sign looks great. It looks great, and there's some trails there I didn't know about that I need to further explore. So I like the OpenStreetMap base on there. So nice work.
Thank you.
I'm in favor of that map. I think that trail is sort of weird right now as it exists, and having a map there might lend itself some more, get it used more, make people aware of its potential. So I'll motion to approve the $130 for the sign.
Second.
Ready for a vote? I vote yes. Drew?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Carlos?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Allison?
Yes.
And Ginny?
Yes.
Done.
Next, we have the Irving property. The sign has been deteriorating over a number of years, and Everett Evans, a local woodworker and friend of mine, and Todd Piskovitz, who Todd actually was the one who got him to make us a new sign for the Irving property. It looks great. I think it's almost done if it's not done now. Kristen, did you get a price?
Yes, I emailed Everett today, and he is not interested in being reimbursed for it. He's donating his time and the materials. So I think it is a gorgeous sign. I hope you all had an opportunity to see the image of it. If not, I can follow up after this meeting with a picture of it. And it would be really nice to send a personalized thank you, I think, to him for that effort.
That's a great idea. We should do that and follow up with him. Sounds like Bill, you're maybe interested in the install. I guess we can coordinate later on how to actually get it done. But yeah, let's send him a thank you note. And maybe we will post about it too on Facebook once these signs are up. Maybe the Industrial Drive one might be a good one to post about once that sign's up. Let people know about that trail. Planks for bridging, Dave.
Yes, I mean, we've actually accomplished quite a bit recently. We've had a fair amount of materials left over from past projects. We've been able to utilize that. There's been donated materials. Obviously, the labor's all been donated. So at the moment, I think we're okay with that stuff. And material-wise, we're covered. And there's been a pretty good response with people donating either money or materials to accomplish the work we have to. But the two the Crooked Bridge or Dogleg Bridge, whatever you call it. And then the lower Swamp Bridge, those were repaired 2 weeks ago. And we used all materials we had already, as well as the upper end of the trail that we did with Comcast a few years ago. That was finished in the past year, the upper end of that. But at the moment, I don't really have any sort of figure that we would need anything for.
Okay, great. Well, good work out there. I know they're getting used. Do you have any other trail-related issues that we should be discussing?
We had a rogue trail open up a while back that Carlos identified. Sent out an email or group email after we were notified of that. And I believe the next day or no more than 2 days later, we closed that down. And we've been trying to keep an eye on the rogue trail situation. That hasn't been too bad. And then the other is just trying to post when we've had extended periods of wet weather to keep people off the trails as much as possible, get the word out. We've even reached down into Massachusetts and up into Maine, because we get a lot of people that visit from those areas, to get the word out that we would prefer to at least give it a day or two after a heavy rain event before people started to utilize the trails again. So all in all, everything seems to be going fairly well, because they are getting used. It's unbelievable right now, the number of people out there.
Well, it's great that we have continued to keep our trails and parking lots open to allow people out. So I think it's been a major accomplishment for us to have this trail network now.
I did want to add, Drew, if it's okay. I did want to add just my sincere appreciation. There are a number, Dave is kind of giving you the broad brushstroke version, but there are a number of times we get reached out to with concerns on the trail. Every time, Dave has been incredible at connecting with the right people. I know Toby Ferdine is very involved with that as well through the Fort Rock Riders Facebook page. They are phenomenal at getting the word out and rectifying whatever situation comes our way. So I really am appreciative of the relationships that we have here. And I also think it's very unique. If you talk to other conservation commissions, there is a struggle on a regular basis. And by having Dave on this board, someone who's actively riding and actively connecting with that community, it's made a huge difference.
Thanks, Kristen.
Yeah.
Just double that. That's just been the real strength of the Oaklands and Henderson Swayze Town Forest. It's been that group of people. It's just both from construction end and just informing people of what to do. It's been great. In the 20-some years, it's the best it's ever been.
Excellent. All right, Kristen, do you want to talk about the McDonald? I skipped over that, or other outreach events?
Yes. So let's see. I'm trying to see what you skipped over.
Just the McDonald gate has been being upgraded. I don't know if there's more to discuss there.
No, not at all. So the McDonald property, as you know, the property owner, that's a conservation easement on the Linden Street side of it. The property owner repeatedly had some concerns with illegal uses and just nefarious activities in the parking lot. Jay Perkins worked and his crew worked to install a gate across that, closing the land at last fall through the winter. And we all recognize that's not an ideal circumstance, but the number of police calls were really pretty significant. And it seemed like signing, we had done a letter to the editor like a year and a half ago, I think it was. Nothing seemed to resolve it. So we have a gate in place, and there was a dramatic amount, no, not dramatic, there was a fair amount of concern expressed to me from the public before we had opened the property up for the spring about being able to access that property. As you know, it gets a fair amount of traffic for fishing. There are people that walk that on a regular basis. And so people wanted to be sure that they could still park in that parking lot. Now, mind you, even with the gate closed, there is still room for 2 cars to kind of head in, park there, and you can still walk around the gate. The gate does not block you from walking on the property. It's really just the parking and dumping and kind of drug exchanges and other things that were happening there that we were trying to dissuade. But managing a gate is a pretty hefty lift. It's not something Public Works can handle. And so through partnership with volunteers, I put a call out on Facebook. Diane Arnheim, the property owner, helps with the gate. Bruce White helps with the gate. And then I put a call on, I think it was Ginny's idea, actually, on the, I forget what your town, like, community chat or whatever it's called, Facebook pages, but I put a request out and have now enough volunteers so that the gate is open every day at 8 a.m. and is closed at sunset. So I'm really thankful to the group of volunteers who are continuing to keep that accessible. And so far, there have not been any complaints about the property. So I feel like it's been a success. It's not the best answer. I wish we didn't have to have a gate there, but we have a solution and it's working.
That's great to hear.
The spring tree program. Do you want to run down these other outreach events, Kristen?
Yeah, I can. I see a hand. Don has a hand up.
Don has a hand up.
Yeah, I did want to comment on the McDonald thing. I was greatly disappointed when we gated the parking area. For over 40 years, I'm an avid fisherman, or have been, up until this year, and fished up and down, both upstream and downstream of the of Second Bridge, where the McDonald piece is. It's also been an area that before we put the new bridge in, which I think was in '96, there was an unimproved parking area there, which was very beneficial for people who wanted to fish, but not only people who wanted to fish, but people who wanted to launch their kayaks or canoes. There's a slight launch spot there just downstream of the bridge. And I'm always concerned that we go to great pains and lengths to provide protection of our resources in conservation areas. But, in this particular case here, we've now limited it. And I know I'm pleased with Kristen's report that opening and shutting the gate has been working well, but I just wish this didn't have to happen. I'm concerned that in the future, it won't be as easy to get there as it is this year. It's an area that the state stocks regularly. I know many times people who are less than agile, as I'm becoming, it was a good place to go down, drive down there, park their vehicle, and within a couple of steps they could fish down there. And I'm not sure if I haven't been down there because I'm kind of in self-isolation right now because of the pandemic, but I'm not sure if this has limited the access to it. So I know there was issues, but I wish there had been a better solution. So I'm just doing an editorial here. That's all. I hope this gets resolved somehow much better, so we don't have to have a gate to prevent people for easy access to that section. Thank you.
Okay, back to Kristen. Spring tree program.
Okay, so the spring tree program, as we know it, it did not occur. The order for the seedlings, however, they're holding the order and planning on doing it next year, I believe. There was some talk about doing it in the fall, but I think that that's not really working out. There's no way to deliver the trees, and it's just kind of a bit of an unknown. So I just wanted to give a report that that Peter Waltz really tried his best. He was very creative in his communication on how maybe we could do a drive-through tree pickup or something like that. And there just really wasn't a way to make it happen. But it is kind of sad, much like a lot of things right now. You know, this is an activity that's been going on, I want to say 23 or 24 years, possibly more every year. So, I guess the good news is he's still committed to continuing the program. And he's also going to, we'll hear about the tree committee update later, but he's also going to be a part of that ceremony as well. So we're just kind of sticking a pin in the spring tree program for now.
Rain barrels.
Yep, so our rain barrel program is still in existence. People can continue to order a rain barrel through May 25th. We will not be distributing them. Public Works has agreed to deliver any direct to someone's door, any rain barrels that are ordered. So if you're interested in a rain barrel, now's the time to do it. And you just go to the Great American Rain Barrel Company, select community programs, and choose the town of Exeter, New Hampshire, and you get a discounted rain barrel, and that's through May 25th.
Excellent. The Skywatch stargazing event has been rescheduled for Friday, October 16th. Whoa. Seems far away, but it'll come quick. Is there anything else on that? Or other rescheduling?
Ginny, I don't know if you have anything to add. I don't.
I think you're muted, Ginny.
Yeah, okay. No, I don't have too much to add, but actually I'm quite pleased it is that far out, Drew. I mean, it seems like everything else is, so no, to be determined, more details later.
All right. Well, one thing we are starting to plan is a virtual hike with Bob from Exeter TV and Parks and Rec. Had the idea about putting together a virtual hike tour of some of our properties with a GoPro camera, I believe. Kristen, or who would like to speak to this a little more?
Yeah, I mean, it's not my idea. I think Bill had suggested this to Bob a while ago, and I'm happy to help in any way. I don't know who is interested in being involved in this, or if there's certain things that you are wanting to highlight. Personally, I would love to take some time and highlight properties that are kind of off the beaten path to try to spread use among a broader array of conservation parcels in town. But just wanted to talk about it publicly here.
Yeah, the new trail off Garrison Lane, that could be a good one, going over to the Stringer Bridge, or whatever we call the bridge across the little river there. But I don't know how to actually execute this. Is anyone interested in organizing this and talking with Bob?
Yeah, I'm happy to offer my thoughts on it too, because we're happy to go out and film stuff if there's like certain trails you wanted to highlight. I think right now we're still not doing any like in-person filming with people until stuff gets relaxed a bit more, but we could probably, with some instructions, go to the trail and, film some stuff and possibly starting next month, that we may be able to, maybe meet up in person and kind of socially distance film if someone wants to talk about the trail or highlight certain features or history, sort of like what I've done for, if some of you have seen the video I did for Rains Farm, where we kind of went into the history of the property and then, some of the nature trails that you can walk on there and, what animals are there and kind of just highlight the beauty of it. So happy to, talk more about any ideas, but I also mentioned in the email chain was I'm looking into, because that's kind of like a video highlight. And then I'm also looking into if we can purchase like a cheap 360-degree camera, because then theoretically I could walk it with this GoPro 360 camera, just walk the trails. And then if you were watching the video, on your phone, on your couch, you can move your phone around and be looking all around you to see, like, as if you were there. So, that could be an interesting thing for people who, can't get out to the trails even in normal circumstances, or just want to check out the trail before they go, or, document the trails, something like that.
That sounds great, Bob. Maybe we can send you a few trails and that we might want to highlight just to start it off, and then we can go from there.
Sure, sounds good.
Yeah, Andrew, I was going to suggest that maybe the commissioners can send to Kristen some of their ideas about which trails, so she can put together maybe a handful of candidates that we could, then Bob could work with that. I like the idea of getting trails that are not, other than the town forest trails, or other than, the ones that are very, very popular. But I like the idea of, just, shorter trails. But maybe if we could send suggestions to Kristen, you could put together maybe a kind of an inventory, an itinerary to submit to Bob.
I'd be happy to.
Dave, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I actually just, I kind of wanted to second what Don was saying, to take some of the pressure off the town forest. There's a lot of people that are not aware of all the other properties that we are currently involved with. And if we could somehow communicate the existence of these other properties to some of these trail users, it would, one, get them out there, publicize them a little bit, and spread people out a little more. Because right now, everybody seems to be going to, the 85 parking lot, the industrial park parking lot, the Trestle Bridge. But a lot of that's because people aren't even aware that there's these other properties that exist. So I think what Don suggests is a great idea.
Excellent. So yeah, if you have any, I think the one off Garrison Lane comes to mind, and we can maybe come up with a short list. So send your ideas to Kristen.
Okay.
All right, moving on. Tree City Subcommittee report. Is that Sally?
That's me. Yeah, so I'll try to be brief, just give you an update. We've actually met twice since the last time we reported to Conservation. And we've made good progress. Continuing to work with Lincoln Street School. Our committee, some of our committee members said before things got out of whack with the pandemic, our committee members met with the Lincoln Street School Green Team and are going to continue to move forward with that into the future in the fall. Biggest thing is we have made progress on a tree planting at Lincoln Street School, and I'll give you the details of that at the end of the report. We've also discussed tree maintenance, recognizing that the more trees we plant on public property, the more need there will be for maintenance. And Greg Bisong, we've been working with him, and he has a program for using tree diapers, which is a rather inelegant term, but it's a good mechanism for watering trees. And so we're working with him on recognizing that we need maintenance to go along with extra tree planting. And several of the committee members have volunteered to give funds to purchase more tree diapers, or whatever term we're going to use going forward. And again, more generally, we recognize the need for the care of trees in town, and we'll develop a strategy for that, working with Jay Perkins going forward. On the funds issue, we discussed how people who are so inclined can contribute funds to support the work of the tree committee. And Kristen reminded us that there already is a mechanism in place that people can donate through the conservation fund and can earmark those funds for whatever purpose they're inclined to do. And so we would like to have people have the opportunity to earmark those funds for the tree work through the mechanism that already exists. And I don't think we need formal approval of that, but we just wanted you to be aware that that's something we are going to be working with going forward. Am I correct that we don't need formal approval of that?
Yeah, that exists.
Okay. We also discussed the spring tree planting with Peter Waltz, and recognizing that we're not doing it this year because of the pandemic, but the tree committee is ready to pitch in and help with that effort when we do it again next year. So it'll be an extra set of hands for Peter's important work. We need to apply annually for the Tree City USA designation, and part of the requirement for that is to have an Arbor Day event. That requirement has been waived this year because of the pandemic, but we are going to label the tree planting that we're going to do at Lincoln Street School as our Arbor Day event. So regardless of whether it's been waived, we think we're covered in that respect. It'll also be a good opportunity to publicize what we're doing. We also would like to increase the visibility of the tree work, but we don't want to overwhelm the town support staff, i.e. Kristen. And so we've chatted with her, and she is agreeable to, if we provide the content, providing a space on the Conservation Commission website and Facebook page for publicizing the work of the tree committee. So we'll be working with Kristen. We've promised her we would provide the content. She wouldn't need to do that. So we'll be doing that. We also, we talked about having a separate Facebook page, but it doesn't seem to make sense. We have to be efficient about our communications in the work that we're doing. That's everything related to conservation. So the big event is the planting of the tree at Lincoln Street. And our original goal was to have this be a celebratory event where we'd involve the students. Obviously, we can't do that this year, but we have moved forward with planting the tree. And we work with Dave Short. Thank you very much, Dave. And Jay Perkins, and have selected a lace bark Chinese elm tree. And the funds to purchase that were provided by Public Works. And next Thursday, May 21st at 1 p.m., we're going to be doing the tree planting. And Jay is going to work with Dave in getting the tree over there. The site is going to be already prepared. And so the event itself will be, again, Thursday, May 21st at 1 p.m. It will be an event, but we're restricted to 10 people. And we've identified the 10 people who we think should be there. And they will be appropriately outfitted with facial masks, and the property will be marked for social distancing. But we think it's important to go ahead, do that this spring, and celebrate that event. So we'll have the banners that have been provided by Tree City USA on display there, and it's going to be filmed by Bob Glowacki and his team. So again, thank you, Bob, for your help on that. And so we're excited that it's actually going to happen. And the site is, it's near what is called the Buddy Bench in the playground of Lincoln Street School, which is a bench that's dedicated to Principal Keys. And so we think it's a great location. We're sad that the students can't be involved in it, but we'll have some other sort of event in the fall when students, we hope, are back in school to celebrate the new tree on right next to their playground. So again, thank you, Dave, and thanks to Jay Perkins for all their effort in helping us do that. And we're very excited that it's actually taking place. Eileen has talked about having a car parade around town after the event to celebrate the recognition of a new tree on our public land. We're not sure if that's going to happen, but that's something you'll hear more about if it comes to pass. So I think that's it. And we also will have a tree diaper for this new tree as well. So if there are any questions about our work or what's happening next Thursday, I'd be glad to entertain them.
Thank you, Sally. It's a great update. That's an awesome event. I'm excited to see the video, maybe.
Yeah, it'll be fun.
All right. All right, so let's go on to the minutes. Thank you to our new minute taker, whose name is Dan. So thank you for doing the minutes. They looked quite good, I would say. The only thing I noticed was that Todd Piskovitz, his last name was spelled correctly in the header, but incorrectly throughout the document. So if his name can be updated, that would be good.
I'll move we accept the minutes of February 11th.
I'll second that.
And we need a roll call vote, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to abstain because I wasn't at that meeting. Drew?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Carlos?
Abstain, I was not present.
Bill?
Yes.
Allison?
Yes.
Ginny?
Yes.
Okay, approved.
Thank you. Any correspondence?
The one piece of correspondence I was going to talk about was the shoreland permit for the Nelson Drive property. I have not been in the office as often, though, so there may be something there that I haven't seen. I haven't been there for about a week now.
You were going to mention that it was issued, but there didn't seem to be anything of note in it, correct?
No, it was a standard shoreline permit. I'm happy to make that available if you're interested in reading it.
Okay. Any other business? All right, our next meeting is scheduled for June 9th. And we have a deadline of May 29th for any submissions. Last call on anything before we head to non-public? Briefly, hopefully. Okay. The non-public session pursuant to RSA 91A:3 2D for the consideration of the acquisition, sale, or lease of real or personal property. So I move that we go to non-public.
Second.
And we need a roll call vote for that?
Yeah.
Correct.
I approve. Drew?
I approve.
Dave?
Yes.
Carlos?
Aye.
Bill?
Yes.
Allison?
Yes.
Ginny?
Yes.
Done. I did have a question about this technically. Do we need to get off of this Zoom and go on to a different one, or do we just stop recording?
Yes.
Yep. So everyone will hop off this. And if you give me a second, I'm going to open up the non-public Zoom meeting, and then all of you can join on that. I believe Kristen forwarded you the meeting invite and password and stuff.
Okay, so we exit this meeting and then join once you've set it up?
Kristen has sent an email out last week that gives the link to the Zoom meeting for the non-public.
Yep, okay.
It should be in your email.
Okay.
So just to double check. So you guys have, you're kind of adjourning the public part now. So you want me to go set that up?
Well, do I need to formally adjourn it? Do I need to do anything else formal to end?
No, you're not adjourning the meeting. You're just moving to non-public.
Okay.
You have to come back to adjourn the meeting after non-public.
We're going to have to come back to this meeting?
I believe that's the way it works.
Yes.
Yeah. If for your new chair, the sequence is, as Mr. Clements said, we're entering a non-public meeting within our public meeting. So we're going to segue to a place where only we can hear and see, and then you have to return to the public meeting to actually adjourn the meeting.
So again, the technical question I have is, so we'll leave this meeting and then have to go back into this Zoom meeting, right? We can't just suspend it. Is that right, Bob?
I guess I'll defer to Julie's legal opinion there. That's also what I understand to be the case. I just don't know. I know in the past that's happened with boards. They will go to non-public and finish their meeting in that room if it was in a separate room. But I guess technically you're supposed, if you went down to the wheelwright room from the Novak room, you're supposed to go back to the Novak room to end the meeting.
The public meeting.
This is the Novak room, I guess, and we're going to go to the digital wheelwright room.
Yeah, Julie?
Yes.
I'm trying to remember all the years that we did non-public. We went down to the wheelwright room. We did our non-public business, and then there was a motion to adjourn or come out of non-public while we were there. Wasn't there? Didn't we also then take a motion to adjourn the regular meeting there?
Right, and we didn't actually move back to the public.
We didn't move back, so but we can.
No, this is different because we're actually remotely. That people have to see that we closed the meeting at the end.
Yeah,
so I don't know if there's going to be a hopping back and forth.
And I'll just add for anyone who possibly is watching online, there may be a chance that the online streams and stuff will end, but we'll restart them when we're going back to adjourn. This is our first time trying it out, so we're going to see what happens when we're going to leave someone in the meeting so that it's still technically open for people to come in or be watching, I guess, sort of like what we do on TV. And I'm going to leave and go open that one, but there's a chance this meeting might end. But we'll restart it, and it'll be the same link to join back into this meeting.
So we all leave the meeting now, correct?
Hold on. Just for clarity, did we do a roll call to go into non-public yet?
We did.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for clearing me up. When you're in the non-public meeting, if there's some motion made that you need to vote on, you don't need to do a roll call. It's kind of weird, but to come back out of non-public, you have to do a roll call again.
If you go to the Kristen's memo of 5.8, it gives you the information to go into the non-public.
Yeah.
Okay.
My internet is starting to freak out too. So if I don't show up in the non-public, it's because I can't reach you.
All right, so I'll go set that up, and you guys should be able to hop in there anytime. You might see a waiting for meeting to start if I haven't started it yet, but you can all leave this now and then hop on to the other one.
Now, do we have to close this one down, or can we just minimize
so
it?
you should see a leave button on the bottom right hand side, so you'd want to all click that to leave this, because you're going to have to manually leave this meeting.
Yeah, it says leave meeting.
Okay,
yeah. You'll go back to the home screen of Zoom, and or you'll go back to your email actually and find the link that Kristen sent you.
May 8th. Yep.
See you soon.
I'm leaving.
Me too.
Thanks, guys.